You're listening to the 49 Carats Podcast, a 49ers Goldmine production with Stephanie Sanchez.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the 49 Carats Podcast. I'm your host, Steph. It is Friday, April 25th. We just got done watching the 49ers make 3 picks in day 2 of the NFL draft. And man, they continue to address the defense. So I'm really excited to talk about today's picks, as well as, of course, their first round pick in Mykel Williams. And joining me to talk about the draft today is KP of Niners Nation. How you doing, man?
What's going on? It's got to be late for you, right?
It's almost 10 here, so
it's on an hour.
Yeah, it is a little late. I was fighting off a migraine most of this morning because so far, the draft has been beating my ass, but all good. I'm good now. I'm excited to talk about day 2 and who the 49ers added. So let's just get into it, KP, and just talking about the players that they've got so far through 2 days of the draft, starting with Mykel Williams, the edge from Georgia. They started off today at round 2. Pick 43, getting Alfred of Texas. Then in round 3, pick 75, Nick Martin from OK State. And then lastly, round 3, towards the end of that round, pick 100, Upton Stout of Western Kentucky. So this is a pretty solid group. I mean, you'll notice one thing, KP. These are all defensive players. So Robert Saleh definitely back in the house.
He said the only way I'm coming back is if you take defense, and don't play with me.
I'm kind of wondering if that was part of the contingency of him joining the 49ers.
Look, y'all were not good last year, and I am not walking into a locker room.
Now.
Yeah.
He said, I'm the captain now. KP, let's start with today's first second round pick. So Alfred, and I got to say, a lot of these notes that I have here on the good were some of my own, because when I watched Alfred, he was one of my favorite defensive tackles of this class to watch. Just really fun. He's got a ton of size. He's 6'6", 332 pounds. His arms are long. That's another theme that we see from Mykel to Alfred 34 plus inch arms. What I saw from his game and watching him, he can not only absorb the double teams, but he can split them too, which I think it lends himself well to being a good run defender. You see that in his tape a lot. He's very active at the line of scrimmage, does a really good job disengaging from his blocks. Again, that's how he's so good at run defending. And his tackle to missed tackle ratio, 55-2, only 2 missed tackles this past season. I think it's one of the main things I like about him. And with those long arms, I mean, he's not going to be missing a lot of people. So I think that's another one. Also durable, played in 64 of 65 games. So I just love Alfred. I loved this pick for the 49ers starting off day 2.
So my takeaway, especially, if we're just pairing it with Mykel Williams, I think the 49ers came in with a plan like, hey, and Stout, let's be specific here, right? Like, that's who's calling the shots. That's who's running the defense. He's known as one of the best defensive minds in the NFL. Like, there's a reason they were so comfortable bringing him back. I guess willing, going out of their way to bring him back. But the 49ers were not violent last year. And then that was one of the reasons that we saw the defense take a step back. They were kind of soft, for lack of a better word, zigzagging from what they had on the roster last year to Mykel Williams, to Alfred, who is very aggressive. If you watch him instantly, you will see him violent. You will see him whip a tight end. One of my favorite things to watch is how does a defensive lineman do when he matches up against a tight end? And there's a couple clips that I remember off the top of my head from Florida where he just chucks the dude to the side. And that's exactly what you want to see, right? I'm going to make an offensive coordinator pay for lining me up against a tight end. So you see that, you see a first step, you see some explosion out of the gate, right? So there's a lot to like as far as traits-wise goes. And best of all, so he uses the length, but some guys use the length and just kind of hold up, but he uses length to win. He uses length to shed block. So he's 332 pounds, but he moves more like he's 305, which is pretty cool. So
he could chase plays down at his
yeah,
size.
he did. he does not play like a 332 pounder. I guess one of I will get to the negatives, but I think there's a lot to like as far as the makeup, right? The pedigree. So there 43 sounds about right for him.
So yeah, I mean, with the first two picks, we see the themes, right? Addressing the run defense, wanting to improve that. I think with those two picks right offhand, like they improved the defense in, within a 48-hour period, right? So with these two picks, and also going to teams that produce good NFL players like Georgia and
Yeah.
I mean, two SEC teams that play NFL level talent week to week. And so these are guys that are going to be ready to perform. The lights aren't too big for them. So that's another aspect of these two players that I'm really excited about right off the bat. But let's talk about just some of the negatives with his game. Sometimes you could play with the high pad level. He was really only a full-time starter just this past season with Texas. And, everyone brings this up, right? Oh, he had a walking boot at his pro day. It was just a calf strain. Okay. He's okay. That's not going to be something that was going to dip his stock or anything like that. So for anyone thinking the 49ers got him too early, no, I think it was a perfect spot to get him at. I think he's fine with that injury now, and he's going to be fine for the season. So I'm not too concerned about that. But any others that you can think of, KP, on just some of the negatives on him?
Yeah, so I think there's a pretty significant difference when it comes to upper body strength and lower body strength. You can see the violence when he gets his hands on you as far as upper body strength goes, but I think when it comes time to like hold his ground, and it could be as simple as, hey, get both of your feet on the ground, and that's why you're getting moved. But I watched him, I thought, like, is his lower body not strong enough to hold up? Because he did get moved a couple times. And the other issue that I had, and I don't know if issue is the right way to put it, but it's a lot. Like, I have notes on him. They're pretty identical. Like the parallels to him and Mykel Williams in a sense are like, they're there. So I thought there were times for Collins where he would just wait too late to get into his pass plan. So like he had an idea. You can see that he knows what he's doing. There was a spin move off the top of my head against Florida again where he wins, but it's too late. And by the time he wins, the quarterback was able to throw the ball. There was another time where he tries to use a little push pull. So he gets into the lineman, stacks, sheds, but he waits too long to pull and get rid of him. And by that time, again, the quarterback had already gotten rid of the ball. So there's a process, there's a plan, but he just doesn't do it quick enough. But when he does, you're like, oh, wow. Like, oh, that's what they see. So when there's consistent coaching, and he's a fifth-year senior, like he knows what to do, right?
Right.
I think it's just a matter of, him being able to do that consistently. But I think his discipline's really good. I think that's some of the players that are in this draft that some of the fans want. Like, for example, TJ Sanders, who went before Alfred Collins. I thought that was the 1D tackle. I thought, hey, like he is not a fit. Steer clear, stay away from him. So getting Collins as opposed to whoever else they would have used, like that will go a long way. But he has some first round traits to him, and I think his hand usage is up there, violent length, but just consistency. And I guess finishing would be another way, right? So he has a bunch of plays where he's right there, and for whatever reason, he's just, I think, a step too late, and that's probably just winning quickly. It comes back to that.
Okay, yeah. So good context there, and I know you said that you did a breakdown on him against Florida, and that's on your YouTube channel. For anyone who doesn't know your YouTube channel, what's the name of that, so they could look that up after this?
Yeah, if you just type in Kyle Posey, it should pop up. Kyle Posey, Alfred Collins. I need to get Stout because we'll get there too. Stout's a guy that I watch quite a bit. I want to get information for guys just like we don't know much about.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Stout was one guy that I didn't know too much about, but yeah, we'll get to him. On Collins, how do you see him fitting in this wide nine scheme? I think, obviously it's not just any DT that you're looking at for that system. They have to have specific traits, two different types. So they got the one in Alfred Collins. How do you see him fitting in with this defensive line and scheme?
What stands out right away when you watch Texas is Collins moved up and down the line of scrimmage. So he played about half his snaps at nose tackle, so right over the center, as you'd imagine for a 332-pound man to do. But he plays three tech over the guard. He plays like a wide five defensive end. So they're asking him to set the edge. They're asking him to do edge rusher things. So that I thought that was pretty interesting. That tells me
Yeah.
not only does he understand the assignment, but he's athletic enough to hold up on the outside if he has to redirect and change directions. Run all those little games that people like to do, that defenses like to do in today's game. So I that stood out to me a lot. I think the versatility with Collins and pairing that with Mykel, just he has the traits and he has the makeup to be a dominant run defender with that length. So I think that really stood out.
And as Tony asked in the comments, do you see him as a 3-down defensive tackle?
Yeah, I think so. And again, just because he's 332 pounds doesn't mean he has to come off the field when it's time for obvious passing downs. Again, they're just going to need some consistency, right? He has to figure out a pass rush plan. And John Lynch talked about that before the draft. If we're going to take these guys, we're going to rely on Chris Kosirik to develop a plan for them. Again, I think one of his best traits is actually his hand usage. So if you can pair that with his length and just come up with 1-2 signature moves, like he already has a really good spin and he sets guys up with that spin move. So having a go-to pass rush move is pretty unique for a defensive lineman at the collegiate level. So I would not take him off the field for passing downs. And I think more importantly, who are you taking him off the field for? And the answer is nobody. So yeah, Collins gonna have to learn the hard way to rush the passer, if anything, just based on the way the roster is currently constructed.
Yeah, I mean the pass production stats don't exactly jump out at you. 7.5 career sacks, but I agree. I think he could still penetrate and create some disruption, and really, I think that's all you'd be looking for. And they also have another defensive tackle that I would expect they also get in this draft that will probably be more of the pass rushing type of defensive tackle as well. So it won't just be Alfred Collins. But as it stands right now, looking at the 49ers defensive line after 2 days of the draft, you got Nick Bosa, you got Alfred Collins, you got Mykel Williams on the other side. And so, yeah, like I said, they need one more defensive tackle that will be more of your 3-tech guy. And the rest will be fill-in guys like Yetur Gross-Matos and Jordan Elliott, Kivins, Akwe Nonu. So the
problem last year is they couldn't even get to passing down. So we shouldn't be talking about passing downs because they were living in so many short yardage situations where they couldn't get off the field. They couldn't get to 3rd and 7. So you couldn't see what Nick Bosa is capable of because they couldn't stop the freaking run. So to be able to rush the passer, you need guys like Williams and Collins who you cannot run at. And that way you can work yourself up to Bosa. You can work yourself up to Sambo, to YGM, because those are pass rush specialist guys. But for whatever reason, and this is where I think Salah's voice really comes into play, they just steered clear of thinking about the run last year, and that blew up in their faces. And one thing that really drives me nuts when people talk about the 49ers' best defense, right, the defense of yesteryear, where it was Salah and DeMeco Ryans calling the shots, they were not elite because they were a great passing team or a great passing defense. They were one of the, if not the best run defense in the NFL. Like they had historic numbers against the run. They were 1, 2, 3 tops in the league for, I think, 19, 2021. So we need to get this out of the head where the only way that you are an excellent defense is against the pass. Like that is just not the case at all. And I think that Salah's getting the 49ers back to their roots here.
Yeah, I absolutely think so as well. And that was the emphasis. That was the theme through 2 days of the draft. And I think it pretty much continued with their first 3rd round pick and linebacker Nick Martin. And so I got to be honest, KP, I was a little surprised by this pick at 75 because I was thinking it was a little early. Us fans, we go off of mock drafts and big boards and where, people have these guys ranked. Teams go by a different type of ranking, right? They filter out guys who aren't fits for them. So, some of these guys that would be in the back end of mock drafts or, big boards are going to suddenly be a little bit higher if they fit that team, right? So obviously Nick Martin, a fit for the 49ers. And so while it was a surprise, I completely get it because you see him and he fits exactly what the 49ers look for in linebackers. I mean, he plays with his hair on fire. He never gives up on a play. He has the athleticism, nice speed, 4.53. Everyone points out that one play of him chasing down Xavier Worthy. And I think that right there just illustrates both of these 2 bullet points here, that he has a speed and, he's not going to give up. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, sure, you could call it a reach by like consensus of everything else. But if that's the guy they wanted, they needed a linebacker. And I think they were set on getting it at 75. I thought maybe it might be Pooh Paul out of Ole Miss, but it ends up being Nick Martin. So tell me what you think about this pick, KP.
Paul's not good, by the way. So I know he was a popular mock the 49ers. He's okay. Let's talk about Martin because Martin's on the roster. Martin is like hella fast. He is like whoa fast. He covers ground in a hurry. What I don't think people are understanding, and I think the way that football is kind of trending is you need to have, with the way that linebackers are blitzing and how often defensive ends are dropping off into coverage, you need to have a second level player who is an effective blitzer. And that's what Martin is. They actually used him quite a bit as a blitzer at Oklahoma State. I believe he had over 100 pass rushes during his career. I watched a play, like I have just these random plays ingrained into my brain. There was a play where he's rushing off the edge, like as a true edge rusher, and he beats the tackle in like 3 steps. So like his speed is apparent and it's evident right away. He was running down some of Arkansas's guys, and they have some speed on that offense. So if you just kind of watch him and over the flow of the game, you can see the plan, right? You can see why they would. He had a 33. I think he had like a pressure percentage of 33% or something crazy last year. And you can see it because he's just running around, guys. He's just winning with speed. So, yes, he is undersized. I don't know. Like, I've seen people question his coverage, and I think they're going to have a plan, right? Hey, guard the person in front of you. Don't let him run by you. You don't need to be this zen guy in zone coverage because that's what 54 is for, right? We just need you to rush the passer, hold up in man coverage. Fred Warner will take away the rest because he's literally done that for the last 5 years. So there's going to be a very simple plan. I think it probably says more about D. Winter's ability to stay healthy. That the reason that they took a linebacker this early, because I mean, if anybody's watched Dre Greenlaw when he was on the field over the past couple of seasons, he was an impact player. But the 49ers needed somebody next to Fred Warner to complement him, and probably not going to be Winters if he can't hold up. So you see the plan: speed, athleticism, just run around with your hair on fire, be the backside guy, run and chase. It might be early for a lot of people, but for the defense, for Robert Saleh's defense to excel, like he's always had 2 linebackers, and that's where Martin's going to come into play.
Yeah, the other thing that, I saw some 49er fans concerned with is the fact that, he missed the final 7 games of the 2024 season with a knee injury. I wouldn't be too worried about that. Like someone asked me, like, does it worry you? I'm like, no. I mean, he participated in all the offseason stuff, the Senior Bowl, the Combine, his pro day. I mean, we talked about his 40 at his pro day. It was pretty freaking fast, 4.53. So I'd have to say, I think that injury is behind him now, and I think he's going to be okay when he's healthy. I think we've seen what he's capable of. He was also a team captain, by the way, this past season. So yeah, I think the reason that the consensus, I think, was a little behind on him was because of that injury, right? It was almost like people forgot about him. So yeah, I think this is a good pick for the 49ers, and obviously it's the guy they wanted. What do you think about the comps to Dre Greenlaw? Because I'm seeing a lot of people say this sounds just like Greenlaw 2.0. Are you seeing that at all with Nick Martin?
I don't want to do that to him, man.
That's unfair.
Greenlaw was legitimately one of the best players on the 49ers defense when he was active, and it over the past couple of years, he really took a step forward. So that's not fair to put him in that same category. But again, you can see the parallels, right? You can see why. I believe Greenlaw ran a 4.53 or 4.55 at his pro day. I know he was undersized, but he didn't play undersized. Martin doesn't really play undersized either. He is So he's reckless. He's a lot more reckless than Greenlaw. They faced a lot of misdirection, so maybe that played into a part. But Martin ran out of his gaps a little too much for me to compare him to Greenlaw. And again, you can teach discipline, right? You can teach, hey, I only need you to do this. Stop trying to do everybody else's job. In my opinion, Fred Warner was guilty of that last year, where he was trying to make up for the linebacker that we're not allowed to talk about next to him. And there's a reason, which is another reason why I feel like the 49ers invested in a linebacker that they felt comfortable with. So Fred Warner can kind of hone in and do his job as well. So I don't want to put Greenlaw on him, but the physicality is there. There are plays where he does run through guys and he is making tackles still, but let's pump the brakes on Dre, because I think pretty highly of Dre. So I don't want to put that on.
All right. And as it pertains to my 49ers draft tracker, he was only on there as having a formal meeting with the 49ers. But actually, Matt Barrows, after Martin was drafted, said that they also met with him at the Senior Bowl because he was there, obviously. And then KJ Wright was one of the coaches for the D-line. But also he had a virtual meeting with Johnny Holland, the linebackers coach. So they did decent work on him. And yeah, the result is that he's now a Niner. So obviously they are pretty big fans. So looking at his stats, like this kind of illustrates it, right? 2024 definitely capped his potential with him missing, the last 7 games. He played 5 of those, but you look at 2023, 140 tackles, 16 tackles for loss, 6 sacks. I mean, you mentioned his ability coming off the edge and also him potentially being a spy is another thing they mentioned, like on the broadcast, right? So he's got some of that to his game where you could probably do some creative things with him as well. So that's something I think that 49ers will definitely want to tap into. So I'm a fan of this pick, even if it was slightly early than you would have thought. But
Sports Info Solutions has they track different stats, and they ranked him as the best pass rushing linebacker in the class. Which again,
that's good context.
The way, like I know I just said this, but the way football needs, you have to have a linebacker who can blitz, because that just gives you versatility. You can do so much more with your defensive line, so that does matter. He also had the 3rd highest tackle share percentage, so he's breaking tackles, like he's cleaning up in that sense. And he also had the 4th best like hand-on ball percentage. So when he is in coverage, when they do use him, he's getting in the way, right? He's getting his hands on passes. So like there is some traits that transfer and that are translatable with Martin.
Yeah. So again, 49ers wanting to address some of the things they've missed out on. Definitely missing out on Drake. Greenlaw, big shoes to fill. We're not saying he's going to be that, but this is a good start. At the very least, he's going to be competing with D. Winters right away. And his floor is that he could be a special teams contributor right away, right? Like that's which they need. Absolutely. So yeah, I think this is a solid pick. And with their final pick of the 3rd round, they had 2, right? So this one came towards the end of it, pick 100 overall. They picked a cornerback, Upton Stout. So I personally had not watched much of Upton Stout. I know they had a 30 visit with him. I know he has a lot of speed, 4.44, 40, and at the combine during the gauntlet, he tracked 19.47 miles an hour. So that tells you his speed right there. And he's going to be a nickel at the next level, right? And Jed York kind of hinted the pick a little bit with saying it's going to be a nickel. And listening to the presser after this round, John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan had a couple of interesting ways to describe him. Heart of a lion, feisty. I believe it was Warren Ball, the scout, who was in charge of this area and watching Upton Stout, who said he had a heart of a lion. So those are some pretty nice words and complimentary of Upton Stout. And of course, to pick him in the 3rd round, it'd have to be right. He's a physical, good tackler. Again, he's going to be a nickel most likely, which that kind of comes into question. Okay, the 49ers now have a lot of guys who can play the nickel spot. Are they trying to alleviate that for Lenore so that he's exclusively on the outside?
Yeah. So, I mean, with looking at, I watched him play, and I actually mocked him in the first mock draft I did back in January. I chose Stout with one of their fourth round picks because he seems like a Robert Saleh type of player, but he seems more like a guy who he would use at safety, which I mean, nickel safety interchangeable. I actually thought he has a lot of Diamondor Lenore qualities, so it makes a lot of sense when they say heart of a lion because he does play like that. He's a guy who I don't think he understands how much he weighs. But that's the kind of physicality you need to excel. And I also think with how interchangeable Salah's Jets secondaries were as far as the nickel and safety and what they're asked to do in pass coverage, Stout just makes a ton of sense. You have to be able to recover. You have to be able to run, and he can certainly do that. I think he's going to be a special teams demon. Like that's what I think he ends up being. And even I assume they're going to want him to take, they're going to want him to win the job because based on who they brought in during free agency, none of those players are players you probably want to see the field defensively. But just watching Stout, he seems like a guy who can move. He has no issues changing direction. The closing speed is there. I mentioned the physicality. He actually did 21 reps on the bench, so like he is a hard worker. That's what that tells you. I think his instincts are pretty good. He does get a little grabby in coverage, but that's tough to determine just because in college you can do that and they won't call it.
Right.
So I assume he'll just have to kind of work through that in OTAs and training camp. I mean, he's small, but he doesn't play small, and I think that's the best way to put him. The best way to describe him. He's going to be a very, very interesting player to watch. But if they were able to make Lenore work, I see a lot of Lenore's similarities and qualities in Stout. So I would assume they have a nice plan for him. I'm not surprised at all. He was actually one of the DBs that just screams Robert Saleh.
Yeah, and he was one of the guys who was at the Senior Bowl as well. So, again, another opportunity for the 49ers to get a look at him against, some pretty good wide receivers that were out there. And we're watching the one-on-one reps here up on the screen. And there's some wins. There's some losses here as well. And so,
that rep that they just showed, I hate one-on-ones because that receiver just went 5 yards across the field. In real football, Fred Warner will knock your block off because he's allowed to do that. So Stout did his job. I cannot stand some of these reps that I see the clips, but starting around.
And then you got the wide receivers that just be dancing,
Yeah,
but we
great.
digress.
The quarterback just got sacked. Well played.
Yeah, and honestly, like I said, I have to watch Upton Stout for myself, so I can't contribute too much to the thoughts on this, but I'm excited based on what you had to say about him. The size thing is what worries me right now, but I'm sure based on everything I've heard, it's not going to look like he's small from some of the tape. So I'm really excited to get into it. And looking at his stats, I mean, he's got some pretty good stats as far as interceptions. One thing that I pointed out is ball skills not quite there. 2002 was maybe one of his better years. He had 4 interceptions that year, 6 passes defended. 2023, 9 passes defended. And so, yeah, I mean, he's got some decent stats and can't wait
another really good blitzer, like another guy who they relied on as a blitzer and who came through as a blitzer. And that's where you can see the closing speed, right? When they get a running start, a head start off the line. But PFF gave him credit for 9 pressures, but he only rushed the passer, 30 some times. So like he's winning quite a bit, or he's winning a lot more than you would expect. So that's where the versatility comes in, where Saleh can bring a blitz from every different direction. I think that's where the creativity from Saleh will come into play. But yeah, I am interested to see how and where he's used because you can move him around a lot. He played a lot in the slot this past year, but the year before he was playing at safety. So I think just throughout his career, especially at Western, he kind of bounced back and forth. When I was watching him, he actually played every spot in the secondary. He played out wide at corner. He played deep in free safety. He played in the box. I've seen him line up on the defensive line before, which is insane to think about for a guy who's the same size as me. But like that just kind of tells you like he's not fear. He's not going to fear that. So it's good to know that he's capable of doing all these.
So do you figure like Salah's going to try to use them in a similar way? I know, obviously at the NFL level, there's going to be some things that's like, we don't want him to line up on the line. Like maybe that's a little much, but as far as, versatility goes and using some of his college experience at different spots, can you see Salah doing some of that with Stout?
I think Shanahan said they view him as an inside guy. So I imagine they're going to play him there early. They're going to give him an opportunity to win that job. So yes and no, I would say. Salah's Jets defenses were so far advanced. I wouldn't pigeonhole him into one role. They do some very fun stuff on the back end, as they did, and I assume he's bringing that to the 49ers. So where Stout's really going to make a difference is, I'm imagining in coverage. So pairing him, and I think, does this mean, and we still have the fourth round to go, and I'm probably getting ahead of ourselves, but does this just mean Jair Brown's locked in?
They could still get a safety.
Right, and they did that last year with Malik, so in the fourth round. So it's not like, I don't know if you want to count on relying on fourth round starters, but yes, Stout gives them the versatility. Lenore gives them the versatility to do these kind of things, kind of play mixed match and just chess pieces, right? Musical chairs in the secondary, if you will.
There's actually a safety that's still available that I really like, and it's Billy Bowman out of Oklahoma. So we'll see where he goes. There's also Lathan Ransom out of Ohio State still available. So there's some options out there if they want to take it, but I don't think it's as high a priority as maybe some of these other spots. Again, defensive line was a big one. I think they did want to bring in a corner at some point. I was thinking it'd be in day 3, KP, but they get it done with their second, third rounders. So they can't say they're not addressing their needs though. So
yeah, Shanahan said like we felt like we addressed our biggest needs. I thought that them paying Lenore last year, they paid him like an outside corner. So maybe they're going to let him be that person on the outside, and that's where the Stout pick comes into play. Yeah, that draft's not done. They still have so many picks left that I don't think we're anywhere near figuring out like who goes where.
Yeah, we figure they're probably gonna get another defensive tackle out of this class, and being that it's so deep, like that, and some edge guys have kind of gone a little later than we would have expected them to. So I think it's playing out perfectly for the 49ers, honestly. And what I've noticed is they're letting the board kind of fall to them. They talked about moving up out of 11 or up from 11 to get Mykel. They got shut down, but ever since then, like they've stuck with their spots and it's worked out for them, where I think they're getting their guys that they want in those spots. So yeah, they're letting the board fall to them and it's working. So before we get out of here, KP, I want to ask you about Mykel, of course. I want to get your thoughts on him. I'm a fan of the pick. He was one of the maybe like 2 guys, him and Nolan were maybe my top choices for them at 11. And they had a bunch of guys available to them when they made that pick at 11 because of the run on offensive players before that. So it worked out perfectly for them then as well. What do you think about Mykel and how he fits in with this defense?
I thought the only options were Graham, Nolan, Williams, and everybody else would have been a failure, which is not true, but just the way that the fit goes, it's about as good as you can get. I've referenced, I comped him to Eric Armstead, and that doesn't mean that I think he's Eric Armstead. I try to put players in a bucket instead of comp. So when I say that, instantly, he's not 300 pounds like Eric. Like, I'm not saying that. Like, that's not what I mean. I just mean his play style. I mean, like his arm, like Eric wins with long arms, right? That doesn't mean he has the same arm length as Mykel Williams. Eric was strong as shit. Like, he's incredibly strong. So is this person. And this person is 20 years old, so he's only going to get stronger. He's only going to add weight. He's only going to fill out. You can see that there is like an incredible run defender in there. I think if you were to rate like the edge rushers in this draft and how they are against the run, Williams is in a tier of his own. Like he just does not get moved, whether it's double teams. He whips you one on one, and he's very, very good at just being disciplined, at holding and owning his gap. And that is not what the 49ers had last year. Leonard Floyd would kind of freelance and do his own thing. Gross Matos is not a good run defender. So like he makes a lot of sense. And I do think um, Williams is going to kick inside a lot because that's what he did at Georgia. And sure, like down the line, that might not be his game, but I think the plan right away is to play him inside because if you watch Georgia, that is exactly what Kirby Smart did. And he really, really was good. As a pass rusher, he showed traits and he showed like that he could win inside, not so much as on the edge. And that's why I think that um, Williams is going to play more inside just because you can see his traits and athleticism flash more when he goes against guards, just because he can overwhelm them with length and quickness. And that his first, like, he has a really good first step,
Yep.
surprisingly good first step for a guy who's playing on a bum ankle all year, too. So I would assume like the healthier he gets, the more stronger, the more explosive he's going to get. So he's going to have to develop a plan. But I mean, S tier run defender who, if he never defines or he never turns out to be, this first round pass rusher, I think his floor is so high that it won't even matter. And there were no real, you know, home run difference makers in this draft as it is. So I Williams, a fairway like that. He's a fairway shot, but you're not going to lose with Mykel Williams type players on your roster.
I think so. And, these Georgia guys have panned out in the NFL. So, again, like the 49ers going back to the well of really good colleges with their first two picks, I think is a pretty good strategy. And, yeah, I mean, Coach Ray kind of say he's the best edge setter in the class. And, speaking of the inside outside versatility of Mykel, so I was thinking because right now his floor is the run defending, right? Like that's going to get him on the field right away. That's going to improve this defense right away. And so you feel comfortable having him out there on those base downs. When we get to those passing downs, and again, maybe we shouldn't talk about that yet until they prove they can even get there. But if we get to that point, I think that's where the 49ers would be interested in moving Mykel inside, where he's proven he can win against those guards, right? And Kyle Shanahan, I think it was on KNBR, like they were talking after the draft, and John as well, and they did actually mention Eric Armstead and just talking about that. And I think it's more so the role, right? Like they're not talking about, because what's funny is like Oladejo, who was another player the 49ers were linked to a lot throughout this process, right? I think that's what they liked about him. And Oladejo did an interview on NFL Network in which the interviewer, I'm forgetting who it was, but he said that KJ Wright likened him to Eric Armstead, but it was the role. It's the specific role.
That's all I mean, too.
And I think that tells you with this pick, like that's the role they were looking to fill.
Who is the player that transformed the 49ers defense over the past couple of years? It was Eric Armstead when he moved inside a defensive tackle. I remember week 8, Soldier Field, every defensive tackle was hurt, so they had no choice to move Eric inside. And from that half on, he became that season, I think it was 2021, he was instantly one of the 5 best defensive tackles in the NFL. So sure, he was good on early downs, but like they could not block him when he kicked inside. And that's what they see with Williams. And I know it's tough to appreciate what Armstead did because he missed so much time. But when he was on the field for the 49ers, they were incredible. And that's what they're hoping, I assume, with Williams, to be able to win on the outside, but dominate on the inside. So win on early downs, but dominate on late downs. And that's where you get that pocket push, right? That's where you can see Samo, Gross Matos, and obviously Nick Bosa. And hopefully, like Collins gives him something as a pass rusher. So, like, the plan is obvious with Mykel. It's just a matter of, right, like how good can he be, right? How high is his ceiling? Are they going to be able to form a plan and be able to develop him? I see, like, if we're talking more comparisons, I think the 49ers are getting like a Cam Jordan type, and nobody would be mad at Cam Jordan. So,
not at all.
Come on.
Yeah, I mean, I like it. The more I talk about Mykel Williams, like the more excited I get about it. And I was already pretty excited when the 49ers made the pick. So I just can't wait to see how this defensive line shapes up this season.
We
So
haven't
far, it's
we didn't
been
really
nice.
talk about this, but the the real ways that he wins as a pass rusher is just when they run all these little games, right? They get him on the move, and now he gets to beat a lineman to the spot, and that's where that first step comes into play. That's where you see his size and the ground that he can cover in his strides. That really shows up. He gets from point A to point B
Yeah.
in a hurry.
And that's where him being in the wide nine, I think, is going to be advantageous to him and his skill set, right? And he talked about it like he's excited to play in it because I think he knows that. So he does kind of look like Chris Jones, though. Now
He
that you
does.
say that, like
He
he does, he
does.
totally does. I was wondering, like he just has like a familiar like NFL face,
Oh,
but
that's Chris Jones.
yeah, it's Chris Jones. If he could play like Chris Jones too, that'd be awesome. But no, I'm excited for this pick. And KP, as we move to day 3, the 49ers have a ton of picks in on day 3. So at the top of it, are there any players that you're kind of circling like that would be a good pick for the 49ers? We talked about Billy Bowman. There's Joshua Farmer as well from FSU. Who are some of your favorites that are still available?
I'm not going to shy away from Farmer because that's FSU guy over here. Um, Marcus Imbo, if we're going to go offensive line, because at some point,
At this
right,
point, that'd be nice.
Shanahan's going to be like, when is it my turn? So, offensive lineman, I think he can not only compete with Colton McKivitz, I think he can snag that job. And I think the 49ers understand
Oof.
any day 3 guy can probably give him some fits. We're going to see a running back, right? At some point, we're going to see some kind of running back just based on the history. Shanahan has said, like, you want to get a guy in every draft. So my guy in this draft is Giddens. So
Okay. Yeah.
I hope Kansas State is available. There's going to be a receiver too, right? And I think they can, just depending on where they find one. I think there is a chance that I would take a shot on a guy who can win down the field, like one of those bigger body guys. I actually think what's his name? Lane from Virginia Tech's pretty intriguing. He's a big body receiver. They're probably going to want somebody who can block. He can fly, he can win down the field. So I would say Jalen Lane, DJ Giddens, Marcus Imbo. Who am I missing? No. Go back to defensive tackle. TJ West from Indiana is pretty intriguing.
Yeah. I mean, he would fit perfectly. Do you feel like his skill set would overlap at all with what they got with Collins?
And I think he's a little more disruptive as a player, as a pass rusher, I should say. I'm not so sure he's stout against the run like that. Well, I'm positive he's not stout. But we're probably going to see like another defensive lineman. But
For sure.
with the thought that Mykel's probably going to spend a lot of time inside, with the thought that Collins is a nose tackle, it'd probably be smart to go pass rusher, right? To go like a true edge rusher guy who maybe is only a pass rush specialist. He's a small school guy, but David Walker from Central Arkansas, like he dominated the competition.
yeah.
And that was one thing that I had an issue with Darius Alexander is he did not dominate the competition. So an edge guy like that, LSU has a guy, Brady Swinson, I think it is, that he might be interested for them. So there's definitely some names out there still who could absolutely contribute to the 49ers.
I think at every position that you just named, there's at least 3 guys that would make a ton of sense for the 49ers that they could target. And we're going to see some of these guys fall. Like, I mean, I wasn't expecting Embu to make it out of day 2, and he has. So that could be an option. Yeah, I'm really excited to see what goes down on day 3. But like I said, so far it's been working out well for the 49ers where they're getting their guys and they're not having to move off of their spot at all. So I'm expecting in day 3, maybe we see a little bit of movement just because they have so many picks on day 3.
I would imagine
3
so.
7s. So that, we got to see something shake up at some point. So maybe tomorrow will be a little more exciting, but today was exciting too. And KP, thank you so much for joining. Good to get your insight on these picks and appreciate you. Appreciate everyone that tuned in. Make sure you like this video if you haven't yet. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Not just mine, but KP's as well. Make sure you check out his breakdown of Alfred Collins against Florida. Just look up Kyle Posey on YouTube for that one. Have a good rest of your Friday, folks. We'll be back with another post reaction of day 3 tomorrow, so make sure you guys check that out. But for now, rest up and peace.